The diamond caught the morning light, sending prisms dancing across my office wall. I twisted my engagement ring absently, a habit I'd developed in the 6 months since Thad had proposed. 3 more days, just 3 more days, and I'd be Mrs. Whitaker. The thought still sent butterflies swirling through my stomach. I glanced at the photo on my desk. Thad and me on the wooden bridge at Harrington Park, his dark hair wind-blown, his arm around my waist, both of us laughing at something now forgotten. That was the day before he proposed, though I hadn't known it then. My phone buzzed, and Thad's name flashed on the screen. I smiled and picked up. "Hey, you, finished with your meetings already?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "Not exactly." His voice sounded strange, distant. "Serafina, I need to talk to you." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" A long silence stretched between us. I could hear his breathing, uneven and harsh. "I can't marry you," he finally said, the words flat and cold. My heart stuttered. "What? Thad, if you're nervous, it's not that." He cut me off. "I've met someone else." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking, Sarah. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen, but I've reconnected with someone from my past. I realize now that what we had, it wasn't what I thought it was." "What we had?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Thad, we have a life together. We're getting married in 3 days. 200 people are coming to our wedding. We've been planning this for—" "I know," he interrupted again, his voice oddly monotone. "I'll handle everything. I'll call the venue, the caterers. I'll take care of it all." "Take care of it?" I stood up so quickly my chair slammed against the wall behind me. "Are you listening to yourself? You can't just cancel our wedding like it's a dinner reservation." "I'm sorry, Serafina. I truly am. But it would be worse to go through with it knowing how I feel. And how exactly do you feel?" My voice was shaking now, tears burning behind my eyes. "After 5 years together, you can at least tell me that." Another painful silence. "I love her. I'm staying in Seattle with her." Something wasn't right. The words were wrong, rehearsed somehow. This wasn't the Thad I knew. The Thad who'd held me through my father's funeral, who'd spent 3 months designing the perfect ring because nothing in the stores was special enough for you, Sarah. The Thad who'd written me a love letter every anniversary, who knew exactly how I took my coffee depending on my mood. "I don't believe you," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "Believe what you want. It's over, Serafina. I won't be coming back to Boston. I've already called a moving company to pack up my things." "No," I said, anger finally breaking through the shock. "You don't get to do this. Not over the phone. You owe me more than this, Thaddeus." "There's nothing more to say," he replied, and for just a moment, I thought I heard his voice crack. "Goodbye, Serafina." The line went dead. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then tried calling back immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again, and again. Nothing. I sat there, numb, for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Then I did what any woman with a broken heart and a suspicious mind would do. I called his office. "Whitaker and Associates. How may I direct your call?" The receptionist's cheerful voice was jarring against my emotional turmoil. "Hi, Gloria. It's Serafina. Is that available?" A pause. "Oh, Serafina, I'm sorry. Thad isn't in Seattle." "Didn't he tell you? There was an accident at the Portland site yesterday. He's been hospitalized." The room seemed to spin around me. "What? What kind of accident? Is he okay?" "I don't have many details," Gloria said, her voice dropping. "Martin told us this morning. Apparently, part of the scaffolding collapsed. Thad was hurt pretty badly. He's at Providence Portland Medical Center." My mind raced, trying to reconcile this information with the phone call I'd just received. "Gloria, thank you. I have to go." I hung up and immediately called Juniper. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, bride-to-be. How's the final countdown?" "Junie, I need your help," I said. already grabbing my purse and keys. Thad just called me and broke off our engagement, claiming he's in love with someone else. But his office says he's in the hospital in Portland from a construction accident. Something's very wrong. I'm going to Portland. Wait, what? Slow down, Sarah. He broke up with you? Over the phone? Yes, but it wasn't him, Uni. I mean, it was his voice, but the words were all wrong. And now I find out he's actually in the hospital? I'm terrified that someone's forcing him to say these things, or… Sarah, breathe, Juniper interrupted firmly. Listen to yourself. This isn't a movie. It's more likely that he's just being a coward. Maybe he got cold feet and made up this ridiculous story. No, I was already halfway to the parking garage. You don't understand. I know Thad. This isn't him. The way he spoke, it was like he was reading from a script. And now I find out he's in the hospital? That can't be coincidence. Juniper sighed. Okay, what can I do? I need you to call my mother and tell her what's happening. I'm going to drive to Portland right now. Text me the hospital information. And Uni? Don't tell anyone else yet. Not until I figure out what's going on. Sarah, it's a 6-hour drive to Portland. At least take a flight. The next flight isn't until tonight. I'll drive. I'll be faster. I hung up before she could argue further. By the time I reached my car, Juniper had already texted me the hospital address. I programmed it into my GPS and pulled out of the parking garage, my mind racing faster than my car. The 6-hour drive was a blur of anxiety and confusion. I replayed Thad's call over and over in my mind. His voice had been flat, emotionless. So unlike him, Thad was passionate, expressive. Even when discussing building specifications, he spoke with animation. And the words themselves, "I'll take care of it all." That wasn't Thad. He would never reduce our relationship, our wedding, to a task to be handled. Something was very wrong, and I was determined to find out what. I'd known Thaddeus Whitaker for 5 years, loved him for most of that time. We'd built a life together, shared our deepest fears and brightest hopes. If he truly didn't want to marry me, I would eventually have to accept that. But not like this. Not with this strange, hollow version of the truth. I called the hospital as I drove, but they would only confirm that he was a patient there. No details about his condition, no information about visitors. My fear grew with every passing mile. By the time I reached Providence Portland Medical Center, it was nearly 8 in the evening. I parked haphazardly and rushed into the emergency entrance, my heart pounding. "I'm looking for Thaddeus Whitaker," I told the woman at the reception desk. "He was brought in yesterday after a construction accident." She typed something into her computer. "Are you family?" "I'm his fiancé," I said automatically, then hesitated. "At least I was this morning." The woman raised an eyebrow but continued typing. "He's in room 312, 3rd floor, west wing. Visiting hours end at 9. "Thank you," I said, already moving toward the elevators. The 3rd floor was quieter than the bustling emergency department. I followed the signs to room 312, my steps slowing as I approached. What would I find behind that door? What if Thad really had been telling the truth? What if there was someone else at his bedside right now? I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, with only a small lamp glowing beside the bed. Thad lay there, alone, his eyes closed. My heart clenched at the sight of him. His face was bruised, a bandage covering his left temple. An IV line ran into his arm, and various monitors beeped quietly beside the bed. But what made my breath catch was the flatness of the blanket where his right leg should have been. "Oh my God," I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. Thad's eyes snapped open at the sound. When he saw me standing there, the color drained from his face. "Serafina," he breathed, sounding both heartbroken and terrified. "What are you doing here?" I moved closer to the bed, my legs trembling beneath me. "Your office told me there was an accident, that you were hurt." His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have come." "Shouldn't have?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Thad, what happened to you? Why would you call me and say those things when you're lying here like this?" His gaze dropped, unable to meet mine. Because it's true. It's over, Sarah. Please, just go home. No. I moved to the side of his bed, close enough to see the tears he was trying to hide. Not until you tell me the truth. The real truth, Thad. He finally looked up at me, his eyes filled with such raw pain that it took my breath away. The truth? He whispered, his voice breaking. The truth is that I love you too much to ruin your life. I sank into the chair beside his bed, struggling to process his words. Ruin my life? What are you talking about? Look at me, Sarah. His voice was hollow as he gestured toward his body, his hand trembling. I'm not the man you agreed to marry. My eyes moved to where his right leg should have been, the blanket lying flat against the mattress from mid-thigh down. Your leg? Gone. The word was sharp, bitter, crushed under 2 tons of steel scaffolding. They couldn't save it. He laughed, a harsh sound with no humor. Some architect I am, can't even make sure my own building site is safe. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Thad, this doesn't change anything between us. It changes everything. His voice rose, then he winced, glancing toward the door. I'm sorry, but you need to understand. This isn't a sprained ankle, Serafina. This is the rest of my life. Our lives, if I let you stay. Let me stay? Anger flared within me. Since when do you get to decide that for me? Since I became half a man. The words were quiet, devastating. You deserve better than spending your life as a caretaker. That's not what this would be. You don't know that. Nobody knows what recovery looks like yet. The surgeon said it could be a year before I'm fitted with a proper prosthetic. A year of physical therapy, pain management, phantom limb syndrome. His eyes were fever-bright, desperate. We were supposed to go hiking in Switzerland for our honeymoon, remember? Explore the Alps. Now, I don't know if I'll ever climb a flight of stairs normally again. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. So you thought lying to me, telling me you found someone else, was the solution? Breaking my heart over the phone while you're lying in a hospital bed? He closed his eyes, pain etching deep lines around his mouth. It seemed kinder. A clean break. You'd hate me. Move on. Find someone whole. You stupid, stupid man. I wiped my tears angrily. Do you really think so little of me? Of what we have? I think the world of you, he whispered. That's why I can't let you sacrifice your life for me. It's not your decision to make. I stood up, pacing the small room. 5 years together? And you think I'm so shallow that I'd walk away because of this? That I love your leg more than I love you? It's not about shallow. It's about reality. He shifted in the bed, grimacing with pain. You think you can handle it now, but what about in 5 years? 10? When you're tired of dealing with my limitations, my pain, my needs? The same way you'd handle it if our positions were reversed, one day at a time, together. I moved back to his bedside, taking his face in my hands so he couldn't look away. Thaddeus Whitaker, look at me. The day you proposed. What did you say to me? His eyes softened slightly at the memory. I said I wanted to face every sunrise and sunset with you beside me. Every sunrise, I repeated firmly. Every sunset. Not just the beautiful ones, not just the easy ones. All of them, Thad. That's what I agreed to. That's what I still want. You can't know? No. You can't know. You can't know how strong I am. You can't know what I can handle. But you should have trusted me enough to find out. A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. I need to check Mr. Whitaker's vitals. Are you family? Yes, I said firmly before Thad could speak. I'm his fiancé. The nurse glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. I'll just be a minute. As she checked Thad's blood pressure and temperature, I stepped back, trying to collect my thoughts. The magnitude of what had happened, both the accident and Thad's deception, was beginning to sink in. When the nurse left, promising to return with pain medication, I sat on the edge of Thad's bed. Tell me what happened. All of it. He sighed, resignation in his eyes. I was inspecting the Portland site. The client wanted some last-minute changes to the atrium. I was up on the scaffolding with the site manager when something gave way. It happened so fast. His voice faltered. I remember falling, then a weight on my leg. The pain was... I've never felt anything like it. Then nothing until I woke up here. When did you decide to lie to me? He had the grace to look ashamed. Yesterday afternoon. After the surgery, when the surgeon told me they couldn't save the leg. I just kept thinking about our wedding. About you walking down the aisle to a man who couldn't even stand to meet you. They have wheelchairs for that, I said, my voice tight. That's not the point. And you know it. He reached for my hand, then seemed to think better of it. I panicked. I saw our whole future crumbling. Everything we'd planned. I couldn't bear the thought of you staying with me out of pity or obligation. Is that what you think our love is? Something so fragile it can't withstand this? I don't know what to think anymore. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. I just know that I'm terrified of the pain, of the recovery, of being dependent, of losing you anyway, after you realize what this life will really be like. I took his hand, holding it firmly when he tried to pull away. Then, let me tell you what I think. I think you've been through a traumatic experience, and you're in shock, and you're scared. That's normal. I'm scared too, but I also think that what we have is worth fighting for, worth adapting for. His fingers tightened around mine, the first positive response since I'd arrived. What if I can't be the man you need me to be? You already are the man I need you to be, the man I love, the man I want to spend my life with. The leg doesn't change that. Tears filled his eyes. I'm so sorry, Sarah, for lying to you, for trying to push you away. I'm angry about that, I admitted, and hurt. That's going to take time to heal, but I understand why you did it, even if it was incredibly stupid and misguided. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You always did call me out on my nonsense. Someone has to. I brushed his hair back from his forehead, careful to avoid the bandage. Now, have you called your parents? He shook his head. I haven't told anyone. Just you. And that was supposed to be the end of it. Well, it's not. I'm calling them right now. And then I'm calling my mother and Juniper, who are probably frantic with worry. And then we're going to talk to your doctors and find out exactly what we're dealing with. We? He asked, vulnerability raw in his voice. We, I confirmed. For better or worse, remember? We just got the worse part out of the way early. He closed his eyes, tears spilling down his cheeks. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed, kissing his forehead gently. But you're stuck with me anyway. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Thad's parents arrived from Chicago, shocked and concerned. My mother drove up from Boston with Juniper, bringing clothes and necessities for both of us. I refused to leave Thad's side except when forced to by hospital regulations. Dr. Rowan Calloway, Thad's surgeon, met with all of us to explain the situation. The amputation was above the knee but below mid-thigh, which was favorable for prosthetic use, though she cautioned that the road ahead would be challenging. The first priority is healing, Dr. Calloway explained, her kind eyes serious behind rimless glasses. Then we'll fit Mr. Whitaker with a temporary prosthesis and begin physical therapy. Once the residual limb has fully healed and stabilized, usually in 6 to 12 months, we can fit a permanent prosthesis. And then? Thad asked, his voice stronger than it had been the day before. What kind of functionality can I expect? With modern prosthetics, your age, and your overall excellent health, I'd expect a very good outcome, she replied. There will be limitations, certainly. Some activities may need to be modified or avoided. But many amputees return to nearly all their previous activities, including sports and physical recreation. I squeezed Thad's hand. See? Switzerland isn't off the table. Just postponed. He gave me a small smile, the first genuine one since I'd arrived. It felt like sunrise after the longest night. When we were alone again, Thad turned to me with renewed seriousness. The wedding will be postponed, I finished for him. I already called the venue and explained we had a medical emergency. They were very understanding. I'm sorry, he said quietly. for ruining everything. You didn't ruin anything. Life happened, that's all. We adjust and move forward. Just like that? I sat beside him on the bed. No, not just like that. This is going to be hard, Thad. Really hard. There will be days when you hate everything, including me. Days when I'm exhausted and frustrated. Days when we both wonder if we made the right choice. But we'll face them together, one day at a time. He studied my face, as if searching for doubt or hesitation. You're really staying. I'm really staying, I confirmed. Though I am a little annoyed that I'll have to redesign our first dance. I had it all choreographed in my head. A startled laugh escaped him. Only you would be thinking about that right now. Well, someone has to think about the important things. His smile faded. What about work? Your exhibition opens next month. The gallery can function without me for a while. I've already talked to my assistant. She'll handle the installation, and I'll come back for the opening if you're stable by then. I don't want you putting your career on hold for me. I'm not putting it on hold. I'm prioritizing what matters most right now. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Besides, I can work remotely on most of the curatorial aspects, the wonders of modern technology. He nodded, but I could see the guilt still weighing on him. Sarah, there's something else we need to talk about. What is it? Children. The word hung between us. We always said we wanted a family. But now, with my condition, I don't know if I can be the father I wanted to be. The father they deserve. Thad, plenty of amputees have children. Wonderful, happy children with active, involved fathers. But what if... No more what-ifs, I interrupted gently. We'll figure it out as we go, just like every other parent on the planet. Your children will love you because you're their father, not because you have two legs. The nurse returned with Thad's evening medication. As she administered it, I stepped out to call the hotel where I'd booked a room but had yet to use, preferring to sleep in the uncomfortable chair beside Thad's bed. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, suddenly overwhelmed by the events of the past 2 days. The wedding that wouldn't happen. The honeymoon that would have to wait. The months of recovery ahead. The lifetime of adjustment. But as I stood there, I realized something important. Not once, not for a single moment, had I questioned whether Thad was still the man I wanted to spend my life with. Not once had I wished to be anywhere else but by his side. That, I decided, was love in its purest form. Not the romantic candlelit dinners and passionate embraces, though those were wonderful too. But this, the willingness to walk through fire together, to face the unknown hand in hand. I pulled out my phone and called Juniper. "How is he?" she asked immediately. "Better. Still processing everything, but better." "And how are you?" I took a deep breath. "Strangely okay. Tired. Worried. But sure about us. Sarah, you know I love you both, but are you certain about this? It's going to change everything." "Not everything," I said softly. "Not the important things." There was a moment of silence before Juniper spoke again. "You're pretty amazing, you know that? I'm just loving the man I've always loved. Nothing amazing about that. Well, your mother and I are here if you need anything. Literally anything. Anytime. Actually, there is something. An idea had been forming in my mind. Can you go to our apartment and find the small blue box in my jewelry drawer? The one with the silver cactus pendants?" "The cactus pendants?" Juniper sounded confused. "Weren't those from that weird desert art exhibition you curated last year?" "Yes, but they're perfect. Can you bring them when you come back tomorrow?" "Sure, but I don't. I'll explain later. Just trust me on this." When I returned to Thad's room, he was drifting off, the pain medication beginning to take effect. I sat beside him, holding his hand until his breathing deepened into sleep. Only then did I allow myself a moment of private grief, not for the future we might have had, but for the pain he was enduring, both physical and emotional. The next morning brought a significant breakthrough. Dr. Calloway arrived with a physical therapist named Miguel, who helped Thad sit up on the edge of the bed for the first time since the surgery. Today we begin the work, Miguel announced cheerfully. Small steps at first, but always forward. I watched Thad's face as he looked down at his leg, at the empty space where the rest of it should have been. His expression cycled through shock, grief, and finally, determination. "I can do this," he said, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. "Yes, you can," Miguel agreed. "And you will. Now, let's talk about what happens next." While Miguel explained the rehabilitation process, I slipped out to meet my mother and Juniper in the hospital cafeteria. Mom wrapped me in a tight hug the moment she saw me. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice thick with concern. "I'm okay, Mom. Really." She studied my face, looking for signs of distress or doubt. "You know, nobody would blame you if this was too much. No one expects—" "Mom," I interrupted gently, "I know what you're trying to say, but Thad is the man I love, the man I choose. That hasn't changed." She sighed, patting my cheek. "You always were the most stubborn of my children, just like your father." "I'll take that as a compliment." Juniper handed me a small paper bag. "I brought those pendants you asked for. Want to tell us what you're planning?" I pulled out the 2 silver necklaces, each bearing a delicate cactus pendant studded with tiny colored stones for flowers. "Do you remember what I told you about cacti when we were putting together that exhibition? That they're incredibly resilient?" Juniper guessed. "More specifically," I said, "cacti store water to survive drought conditions. They thrive in the harshest environments, and their flowers, some of the most beautiful in nature, bloom most vibrantly after periods of extreme stress." My mother's eyes softened with understanding. "A metaphor for what you and Thad are going through." "Exactly." I held the pendants in my palm, the silver catching the fluorescent lights. "We're facing our own desert now, but we'll store strength for each other, and eventually, we'll bloom again." "That's beautiful, Sarah," Juniper said, her voice uncharacteristically emotional. "Though I'm still mad at him for that phone call. What a monumentally stupid thing to do. He thought he was protecting me," I sighed. "Misguided as it was." "Men," my mother scoffed, though there was fondness in her tone, "always thinking they know what's best for us." When I returned to Thad's room, he was alone again, looking exhausted, but somehow lighter. "Miguel says I can try a walker tomorrow," he told me, a hint of pride in his voice. "That's wonderful." I sat beside him, taking his hand. "Juniper brought something I want to show you." I pulled out the cactus pendants, laying them on the blanket between us. His brow furrowed in confusion. "What are these? Do you remember the Desert Blooms exhibition I curated last year?" He nodded. "You were obsessed with cacti for months. Our apartment looked like a greenhouse." "Because cacti fascinate me," I explained. "They're survivors, Thad. They adapt to the harshest conditions on Earth, and not only survive, but thrive. And when they bloom—" I touched one of the tiny colored stones on a pendant. "Their flowers are the most spectacular in nature." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You're saying we're like cacti now." "I'm saying we've always been like cacti. Strong, adaptable, built to withstand drought and heat, and whatever else life throws at us. This situation, it's just our desert moment. But we'll store strength for each other, and when the time is right, we'll bloom again, more beautifully than before." Tears filled his eyes. "How do you do that? How do you find hope in everything?" "Not everything," I admitted, "just in us." I placed one of the necklaces around his neck, the silver pendant resting against his hospital gown, a reminder that even in the desert, there's life and beauty and resilience. He touched the pendant, his fingers tracing its shape. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me, for not letting me give up on us." I put on the matching necklace, feeling its weight against my skin. Never. The days that followed established a new rhythm to our lives. Thad's parents returned to Chicago after a week, once it was clear he was stable and improving. My mother and Juniper went back to Boston, though they called daily. I extended my leave from the gallery and found a small, furnished apartment near the hospital. Each day brought small victories and inevitable setbacks. Thad's first attempt with the walker ended with him collapsing in frustration and pain. His second attempt was marginally better. By the third day, he could make it to the bathroom with assistance. Physical therapy was grueling. I watched him struggle, sweat pouring down his face, determination battling against physical limitations. The phantom pain, sensations from the missing limb, tormented him, especially at night. Sometimes I would wake to find him clutching at empty air, his face contorted in agony. "It feels like my toes are cramping," he told me once, "but I can't uncurl them because they're not there." These were the moments that tested us both, his patience, my strength. There were days when he wouldn't speak, lost in a darkness I couldn't penetrate. Days when he snapped at me for the smallest things, then apologized with tears in his eyes. Days when I had to step outside his room and cry silently in the hallway, overwhelmed by the magnitude of our new reality. But there were beautiful moments too. The first time he laughed genuinely at a terrible joke from Miguel. The day he was fitted for his temporary prosthesis, his face alight with possibility. The evening we sat together in the hospital garden, watching the sunset, his hand warm in mine. "I can't believe you canceled our wedding," I teased him one afternoon as he practiced standing with his temporary prosthesis. "And here, I bought that ridiculously expensive dress." He looked up, startled, then saw my smile. "Well, the dress isn't going anywhere, is it? And neither am I, apparently." "I should hope not. I've invested too much time in you to start over with someone new." "Gee, such romance," he quipped, but his eyes were soft. "You'd have to train a whole new fiancé to load the dishwasher correctly." "Exactly. Far too much effort." These moments of normalcy, of the banter that had always characterized our relationship, were precious anchors in the storm. 3 weeks after his accident, Thad was discharged from the hospital. The transition to outpatient care brought new challenges. Our temporary apartment wasn't fully accessible. Simple tasks like showering became complicated operations. "I hate this," Thad muttered one evening after a particularly difficult shower. "I hate being helpless." "You're not helpless," I countered, handing him a towel. "You're healing. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it most days." I sat beside him on the bed. "Tell me what you need from me right now. Not what you think I want to hear, but what you actually need." He was quiet for a long moment. "Space, sometimes," he finally admitted. "To be angry or frustrated without feeling like I'm disappointing you." I nodded, trying not to let the hurt show. "I can give you that. But also," he reached for my hand, "this, you, reminding me that we're still us underneath it all." "We are still us," I assured him. "Changed, maybe, but still Serafina and Thaddeus, the couple who drove their friends crazy with excessive PDA and architectural debates over dinner." He smiled at the memory. "God, we were insufferable, weren't we?" "Completely. And we will be again. I promise." That night, for the first time since the accident, Thad initiated physical intimacy. It was tentative, uncertain, nothing like the passionate encounters we'd shared before. But as we rediscovered each other in this new reality, I felt something precious, healing between us. "I was afraid," he confessed afterward, his voice low in the darkness, "that you wouldn't want me anymore. Not like that. I will always want you." I whispered against his skin, "Every part of you. Even the parts that aren't there? Especially those," I said, "because they're part of your story now. And I love every chapter of you, Thad." The weeks turned into months. Thad progressed from the temporary prosthesis to a more advanced model. His physical therapy intensified. I split my time between Portland and Boston, managing the gallery remotely when possible, flying back for critical events. The exhibition opened without me, my assistant stepping admirably into my role. I watched the live stream from our apartment in Portland, Thad beside me on the couch. "You should be there," he said, watching as the gallery filled with patrons and critics. "I am exactly where I need to be," I replied. But I couldn't deny the tug of my professional life, the career I'd worked so hard to build. Thad noticed, of course. He always did. "We need to talk about going home," he said one evening after returning from therapy. "To Boston. To our life there. Are you sure you're ready?" I asked, surprised by the suggestion. Dr. Calloway said I'm progressing exceptionally well," he interrupted. "And there are excellent prosthetic specialists in Boston. Better ones, actually. But your therapy here can be continued there." He sat beside me, taking my hands in his. "Sarah, you've put your life on hold for me for almost 4 months. I can't ask you to do that anymore." "You didn't ask. I chose this." "I know," he said softly, "and I will never be able to express what that's meant to me. But now I'm choosing to. I'm choosing to move forward, to reclaim our life together." I studied his face, seeing the determination there, the strength that had been growing day by day. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He nodded. "It's time to go home." The decision made, events moved quickly. Dr. Calloway referred us to specialists in Boston. Thad's physical therapist provided detailed records and recommendations. We gave notice on our temporary apartment and booked flights. The night before our departure, we took a final walk through the small park near our apartment. Thad's gait was still uneven, his prosthetic leg causing a slight hitch in his stride, but he moved with increasing confidence. "I never thought I'd be grateful for a construction accident," he said, as we paused by a small pond. "But in a way, I am." "Grateful?" I echoed, surprised. "It showed me what we're made of, what you're made of." He turned to face me, the setting sun gilding his profile. "I thought I knew how much you loved me, Sarah, but I had no idea at all." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Now you know. Now I know," he agreed. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much I love you too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. "I had this custom made," he said, opening the box to reveal a silver ring with a delicate cactus design winding around a diamond, to replace the one I almost threw away. "Thad," I whispered, overwhelmed. "Seraphina Ellington," he said, his voice steady as he balanced carefully on his prosthetic leg. "Will you still marry me? Not out of pity or obligation, but because you choose this life, challenges and all?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Today, tomorrow, always." As he slipped the ring onto my finger, I knew that whatever deserts lay ahead, we would face them together, storing strength for each other, thriving in the harshest conditions, and eventually, inevitably, blooming again. The return to Boston felt like entering a parallel universe, everything familiar yet fundamentally altered. Our apartment, once navigated without thought, now presented a maze of challenges. The step up from the entryway, the narrow bathroom door, the bed positioned too close to the wall. "We need to make some changes," I said on our first night home, watching Thad struggle to maneuver in spaces designed for his previous body. "I've been thinking about that," he admitted, lowering himself carefully onto the couch. "I've sketched some ideas for modifications. Nothing major, just enough to make things more accessible." He pulled out his tablet and showed me the drawings, subtle adjustments to our living space that would accommodate his new reality without sacrificing the aesthetic we both loved. "You've been planning this," I realized. "I am an architect," he reminded me with a small smile. "This is what I do. Design spaces for human bodies to move through comfortably. Even if the human body in question is yours? Especially then." He swiped to another design. "I've also been thinking about returning to work. Martin's been incredibly patient, but I can't hide in rehabilitation forever." I sat beside him, studying his face. "Are you sure? There's no rush." "There is for me," he said quietly. "I need purpose, Sarah. Something beyond recovery. I'm still me, still an architect, still capable of creating." I nodded, understanding. "Have you talked to Martin about it?" "We've exchanged some emails. He suggested starting with remote consultations, then gradually returning to the office as I'm able." Thad set down the tablet, The Portland project is on hold, obviously. The client was understanding, but I don't think I could face that site again anyway. Of course not, I agreed. But there will be other projects. That's what I'm counting on. Life settled into a new rhythm. Contractors came to modify our apartment according to Thad's designs. I returned to my position at the gallery, grateful for the structure and purpose it provided. Thad began working remotely, his confidence growing with each successful consultation. Physical therapy continued, now at a Boston facility. Thad's new prosthetist, Dr. Elaine Chen, was a pioneer in her field, specializing in advanced prosthetics for active lifestyles. "I'm impressed with your progress," she told Thad during their second session. "You've clearly put in the work." "I have a good incentive," he replied, glancing at me. Dr. Chen smiled knowingly. "I see that. Still, don't push too hard too fast. Recovery isn't linear. There will be setbacks." She was right, of course. For every triumphant day when Thad mastered a new skill or overcame a limitation, there were others filled with frustration and pain. The phantom sensations continued to haunt him, sometimes waking him in the night, his face contorted in pain from a limb that no longer existed. On those nights, I would hold him, whispering reassurances until the episode passed. Sometimes it helped, sometimes nothing did. Those were the darkest moments, when I glimpsed the depths of what he was enduring. There were other challenges too. The stares from strangers when Thad's prosthetic was visible, the well-meaning but awkward questions, the assumptions about his capabilities. "Someone offered to help me cross the street today," Thad told me one evening, a mixture of amusement and irritation in his voice. "As if having one leg makes me incapable of looking both ways." "Tweet, what did you say?" "That I appreciated the thought, but I've been crossing streets successfully for 35 years and didn't anticipate any problems continuing." "Diplomatic," I observed. "I was feeling generous." He shrugged. "Last week I might have been less polite." These interactions were frequent enough to be wearing, but infrequent enough to be jarring each time. Thad handled them with increasing grace, though I could see the toll they took on his energy and spirit. 6 months after the accident, Dr. Chen fitted Thad with his permanent prosthesis, a sleek, state-of-the-art model with microprocessor control and natural movement patterns. "This is the real deal," she explained as Thad tested it. "The computer inside reads your movements 60 times per second, adjusting the knee's resistance to match your stride, speed, and terrain." Thad took a few experimental steps, his gait noticeably smoother than with the temporary prosthesis. "It feels different, lighter." "It should. The materials are advanced composites, stronger than steel but a fraction of the weight." Dr. Chen made a small adjustment. "How's that?" Thad took another walk around the room, a look of wonder spreading across his face. "It's incredible. Like the difference between a flip phone and a smartphone. Technology's come a long way," she agreed, "and it keeps improving. This model's software can be updated as new advancements come out." As Thad continued testing the prosthesis, I found myself blinking back tears. This wasn't a cure. Nothing could replace his lost leg, but it was a significant step toward the life he wanted to reclaim. That evening, we celebrated with dinner at our favorite restaurant, the first time we'd been out somewhere special since before the accident. Thad walked in with minimal assistance, drawing appreciative glances from several patrons. "You're causing quite a stir," I teased as we were seated. "It's the new suit," he replied with a wink. "Or possibly the incredibly beautiful woman on my arm." "Definitely the suit," I said, but warmth spread through me at the compliment. This playful banter had been rare in recent months, overshadowed by pain and adjustment. Over candlelight and wine, something shifted between us. The weight that had pressed on our relationship began to lift, not entirely, but noticeably. We talked about work, friends, the future, normal conversations that had nothing to do with prosthetics or physical therapy or accessibility challenges. "What do you think about setting a new wedding date?" Thad asked as we shared dessert. The question caught me by surprise. "Are you ready for that?" "I think I am," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Not tomorrow, but maybe in the spring. By then, I'll be dancing at close to full capacity, according to Dr. Chen." "Dancing, huh?" I smiled, remembering our previous conversation about the first dance. "Any particular style you have in mind?" "I was thinking something classic. A waltz, perhaps. Something steady but elegant." "I like that idea," I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "Spring it is, then." That night, our lovemaking had a new dimension. Not the tentative rediscovery of months past, nor the familiar patterns from before the accident, but something entirely new. A celebration of the bodies we had now, changed, but no less passionate, no less connected. Afterward, Thad traced the outline of the cactus pendant that still hung around my neck. "You know what I realized today? We're in the blooming phase now." "You think so?" He nodded. "The worst of the drought is over. We stored enough strength to make it through. Now, it's time for color and growth." As winter melted into spring, the truth of Thad's words became evident. He returned to the office part-time, using a combination of remote work and in-person meetings. I curated a new exhibition, this one featuring artists who created beauty from damage, kintsugi pottery, reclaimed materials, art born from destruction. We set our wedding date for May 15th, exactly 1 year after Thad's original proposal. The venue was different, the wooden bridge at Harrington Park, where he'd first proposed, rather than the grand ballroom we'd previously booked. The guest list was smaller, more intimate, but the essence remained the same. A celebration of our commitment to each other, now tested and proven by fire. Planning the wedding gave us a positive focus, something to look forward to beyond the next physical therapy appointment or prosthetic adjustment. Thad threw himself into the process with unexpected enthusiasm, designing a simple but elegant outdoor setting that accommodated his mobility needs without drawing attention to them. "The key," he explained as he showed me his sketches, "is to design it so that accessibility is seamless, not an afterthought. Everyone should be able to move through the space with equal ease." "The architect in you is showing," I teased. "Can't help it. It's who I am." His smile faded slightly. "Though I haven't designed anything new since the accident. Just modifications and consultations on existing projects." "You will," I assured him. "When you're ready." He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. This was perhaps the deepest wound. Not the physical loss, but the impact on his creative confidence. The architect who couldn't trust his own structures. 2 months before the wedding, Thad received an unexpected call from a former client, a wealthy philanthropist named Eleanor Halliday, who had commissioned him to design her modern art gallery 3 years earlier. "She wants to meet," he told me that evening. "Says she has a new project in mind. Something only I can do, apparently." "That's wonderful," I said. "What kind of project?" "She wouldn't say over the phone. Wants to discuss it in person." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of nervous anticipation I hadn't seen in months. "I'm not sure I'm ready for a new commission, Sarah. What if I can't deliver what she wants?" "You won't know until you hear her out," I pointed out. "And if it's not right, you can always decline." The meeting was set for the following week at Eleanor's penthouse overlooking the Charles River. I offered to accompany Thad, but he declined. "I need to do this myself," he said. "If I'm going to get back to real design work, I can't be dependent on you for professional meetings." I understood his reasoning, but still felt anxious as he left that morning, dressed in his best suit, the slight unevenness in his gait the only visible sign of his prosthesis. He returned 5 hours later, his face alight with an energy I hadn't seen since before the accident. "She wants me to design a rehabilitation center," he announced without preamble. "Not just any center, a state-of-the-art facility specifically for amputees and severe trauma patients." "Thad, that's incredible. It gets better," he continued, pacing the living room with unusual fluidity. "She wants it to be beautiful, not institutional, not clinical. A space that feels more like a high-end retreat than a hospital. A place that heals the spirit while the body recovers. That sounds perfect for you. She chose me because of the accident, he admitted, stopping by the window. Not despite it. She said my personal experience gives me insights no other architect could have. I moved to stand beside him. She's right. I told her about the accessibility modifications I designed for our apartment, about the challenges I've encountered in public spaces. Before I knew it, I was sketching ideas right there at her dining table. He shook his head in wonder. Sarah, I felt like myself again. The real me. The architect who can see possibilities where others see only problems. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the solid strength of his body against mine. You've always been that person, Thad. The accident didn't change that. No, but it did change how I see the world. He turned to face me. Every doorway, every step, every bathroom and hallway and public space, I notice things now that I never saw before. And I can use that, Sarah. I can create spaces that work for everyone, not just the able-bodied. His excitement was contagious, his passion palpable. That evening, he pulled out his drafting tools for the first time since the accident, sketching preliminary concepts long into the night. I watched him work, the familiar intensity on his face as he lost himself in creation, and felt a surge of joy so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. This was the blooming phase indeed, not a return to what was before, but the emergence of something new and perhaps more beautiful because of the struggle that preceded it. As our wedding day approached, Thad worked diligently with his physical therapist on our first dance. I wasn't permitted to watch the practice sessions. It has to be a surprise, he insisted, but occasionally I caught him practicing his steps in the living room when he thought I wasn't looking. The night before our wedding, we broke tradition and spent the evening together, sitting on our balcony under a canopy of stars. Any second thoughts? I asked, only half joking. Thad's hand found mine in the darkness. Not a single one. You? Just wondering if I should have ordered the chocolate cake instead of the vanilla, I replied. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. As long as you show up tomorrow, I don't care if we serve crackers. I'll be there, I promised. Wild horses couldn't keep me away? Not even if I call and tell you I've fallen in love with someone else, he teased, referencing his disastrous attempt to push me away all those months ago. Especially not then. I'd know you were lying. His expression softened. I still can't believe you saw through that you came looking for me. I know you, Thaddeus Whitaker, better than you know yourself sometimes. Thank God for that, he whispered. Morning dawned clear and bright, a perfect May day for an outdoor wedding. I stood in a hotel suite, my mother and Juniper helping me into my dress. Not the elaborate ball gown I'd originally chosen, but a simpler, more elegant design that felt right for our reimagined celebration. You look radiant, my mother said, adjusting the simple veil in my hair. She looks like a woman in love, Juniper corrected with a smile, which is better than radiant any day. I touched the cactus pendant at my throat. I'd had it incorporated into my wedding jewelry, a reminder of the journey that had brought us to this day. Nervous? Juniper asked, noticing the gesture. Not about marrying Thad, I replied honestly. Just hoping everything goes smoothly for him today. It's a lot of standing, walking. He'll be fine, my mother assured me. That man would crawl down the aisle to you if he had to. Fortunately, that won't be necessary, I laughed, pushing away the worry. This was our day, a celebration, not an obstacle course. The ceremony was set for 11, giving us the full day to celebrate before Thad would inevitably need to rest. As I rode to Harrington Park with my mother and Juniper, I felt a sense of rightness, of completion. The journey to this day had been nothing like we'd planned, but somehow it felt more meaningful for the detours and challenges. Harrington Park was transformed. The wooden bridge where Thad had proposed was decorated with simple white flowers and greenery. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle on the grassy area beside it, allowing everyone a clear view. A string quartet played softly, the music carrying on the spring breeze. I remained in the car, watching as guests arrived. Family, friends, colleagues, fewer than our original 200, but every face belonged to someone who had supported us through the past year. Thad's parents, elegant and composed, my siblings with their families, Juniper's girlfriend helping an elderly relative to her seat, Dr. Calloway, who had flown in from Portland for the occasion, Dr. Chen, whose expertise had given Thad his confidence back. And there, standing tall at the center of the bridge, was Thad. From this distance, no one would know what he had endured. His posture was straight, his custom suit impeccable. Only I could see the slight adjustment in his stance to accommodate the prosthesis, the subtle bracing of his hand against the bridge railing. "It's time," my mother said softly, checking her watch. I took a deep breath and stepped from the car, my simple bouquet of desert flowers, including tiny cacti blooms, clutched in my hands. The string quartet transitioned to the wedding march, and heads turned as I began my walk toward the bridge. But I had eyes only for Thad. His face as he watched me approach was a study in emotion, wonder, joy, love, and a vulnerability that brought tears to my eyes. This was the man who had tried to push me away to spare me, the man who had learned, painfully, that true love doesn't spare us from difficulty, but walks alongside us through it. As I reached the bridge, my father beside me, I saw that Thad was standing without assistance, without his cane. This, I realized, was the surprise he'd been working toward in his private therapy sessions. To stand independently as I came to him. To begin our marriage on his own 2 feet, one flesh and one carbon fiber. "You look beautiful," he whispered as I reached him. "So do you," I replied, meaning it from the depths of my heart. The ceremony was simple, but profound. We had written our own vows, each word carefully chosen to reflect not only our hopes for the future, but the truths we had already lived. "Serafina," Thad began, his voice steady and clear, "1 year ago, I asked you to share your life with mine, never imagining how soon that commitment would be tested. When I lost my leg, I thought I'd lost everything. My career, my independence, my future with you. I tried to push you away, believing I was protecting you from a burden you never signed up for." He paused, emotion briefly overwhelming him. I squeezed his hands, encouraging him to continue. "But you refused to be pushed," he went on with a small smile. "You fought for us, when I couldn't fight for myself. You saw strength in me, when I saw only weakness. You showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing each other fully, brokenness and all, and choosing to stay." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a ring. A simple platinum band inlaid with turquoise, the color of desert skies. "With this ring, I promise to love you completely and without reservation. To face every sunrise and sunset with you beside me, the beautiful ones and the difficult ones, to build a life with you that honors the strength we've found in each other, and to remember, always, that like the cacti we wear around our necks, we are designed to thrive even in the harshest conditions, to store strength for each other, and to bloom in the most unexpected ways." Tears streamed down my face as he slipped the ring onto my finger. When it was my turn to speak, I had to take a moment to compose myself. "Thaddeus," I began, "people say that you don't truly know someone until you've seen them at their worst. This past year, we've seen each other at our most vulnerable, our most afraid, our most exhausted. And what I've discovered is that even at your worst moments, you are still the man I want to spend my life with." I took the matching ring from Juniper, holding it before him. "You once told me you were half a man, but the truth is that your accident didn't diminish you. It revealed parts of you that might have otherwise remained hidden. Your courage, your resilience, your capacity to rebuild not just your body, but your entire understanding of yourself. I slipped the ring onto his finger, feeling the slight tremor in his hand. With this ring, I promise to love you not despite our challenges, but because of how we face them together. To be your partner in all things, to support your dreams and share your burdens, to remind you, when you forget, of your own strength and worth, and to celebrate the unique and beautiful life we create together, knowing that like desert flowers, our love will be all the more precious for the harshness it has survived. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and Thad pulled me into a kiss that seemed to contain all the emotion of the past year, the pain, the fear, the hope, and the triumph. Our guests erupted in applause, many openly weeping. The reception was held in a tent beside the pond, the space designed by Thad to be both beautiful and accessible. As guests mingled during the cocktail hour, I noticed how seamlessly he had incorporated features that accommodated not only his needs, but those of several older guests and a cousin in a wheelchair. Wider pathways, subtle ramps disguised as design elements, strategically placed seating areas. This is a preview of your rehabilitation center design, isn't it? I asked him as we shared a quiet moment. He nodded, looking pleased that I'd noticed. The first draft anyway. What do you think? I think Eleanor Halliday made the perfect choice of architect. Dinner was served, toasts were made. Thad's father spoke eloquently about resilience and reinvention. My mother told the story of how I'd flown to Portland without hesitation, knowing something was wrong despite Thad's deception. Juniper's toast was both funny and touching, ending with raised glasses to the strongest people I know, who redefined what love looks like. And then it was time for our first dance. The space cleared, and Thad led me to the center of the floor. The string quartet began to play, not the waltz we had discussed, but La Vie en Rose, the song that had been playing the night we met at a gallery opening 5 years earlier. Ready? Thad whispered, as he took me in his arms. Always, I replied. And then we were dancing. Not the elaborate choreography I'd once imagined, but something more meaningful. A slow, intimate movement that accommodated Thad's abilities while still expressing the grace and connection between us. He moved with confidence, the months of secret practice evident in every step. There was a slight hesitation when he turned, a careful balance when he drew me close, but to everyone watching, and especially to me in his arms, it was perfect. "You're amazing," I whispered, as he guided me through a gentle spin. "We're amazing," he corrected, drawing me back to him. "Everything I do now, I do because of you, with you." As other couples joined us on the dance floor, I caught glimpses of our future in Thad's eyes, the rehabilitation center he would design, the family we would build, the life we would create together. Not the life we had originally planned, but perhaps a richer, deeper version shaped by the challenges we had overcome. The celebration continued into the evening, though I noticed Thad's energy beginning to wane after several hours. Without drawing attention to it, I guided us toward the conclusion, the cake cutting, the final toasts, the traditional send-off. As we prepared to leave, Eleanor Halliday approached us, elegant in a tailored navy suit. "Congratulations to you both," she said warmly. "Thaddeus, I can't wait to see your preliminary designs next week. And Serafina, your input will be invaluable as well. I understand you've become something of an expert on the emotional aspects of recovery." "Hardly an expert," I demurred, "just someone who's walked alongside it. Sometimes that perspective is the most valuable of all," Eleanor replied. "The center isn't just for the patients, you know. It's for the families who support them, who fight for them, who refuse to give up on them." She glanced meaningfully at Thad. "You're a fortunate man." "Don't I know it?" he agreed, his arm tightening around my waist. We departed amid a shower of flower petals, climbing into the vintage car that would take us to the boutique hotel where we would spend our wedding night. The full honeymoon, a modified version of our original Switzerland plans, would wait until autumn, when Thad's strength would be at its peak. In the privacy of the car, Thad finally allowed his exhaustion to show, leaning back against the seat with a long exhale. "You did it," I said, taking his hand. "Every minute. Exactly as you planned." "We did it," he corrected, lifting my hand to his lips. "I couldn't have managed any of it without you." "That's not true. You're stronger than you know, Thad." "Maybe," he conceded, "but I'm better with you beside me." At the hotel, a specially reserved accessible suite awaited us. Thad insisted on carrying me over the threshold. "A non-negotiable tradition," he declared, though I noticed him brace himself carefully before lifting me. Once inside, he set me down gently and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. I came to stand beside him, wrapping my arms around his waist. "Penny for your thoughts, Mr. Whitaker. Just thinking about how close I came to losing all this," he said quietly. "If you hadn't been so stubborn, so determined. If you hadn't been worth fighting for," I countered. He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I want you to know something, Sarah. Whatever happens from here, whatever challenges we face, whatever adaptations we need to make, I will never again try to decide what's best for you. I've learned that lesson." "Good," I said, reaching up to touch his face. "Because I choose you, Thaddeus. Every day, in every circumstance, I choose you." He pulled me close, his embrace strong and sure. "And I choose you, Serafina. Today and always." Later, as we lay together in the soft darkness, Thad traced the outline of the cactus pendant that still hung around my neck. "You know what I love about cacti?" he murmured sleepily. "What's that?" "They've evolved precisely for the environment they inhabit. What looks like a limitation, the spines, the thick skin, is actually perfect adaptation." His fingers moved from the pendant to the smooth skin of my shoulder. "Maybe that's us now. Not limited, just perfectly adapted to our reality." I smiled against his chest. "I like that. Perfectly adapted. There's something else about cacti," he continued. "They're incredibly diverse. There are thousands of species, each with its own unique shape and structure. Some tall and solitary, others growing in clusters. Some flowering briefly once a year, others almost continuously." "And which kind are we?" I asked, curious where his thoughts were leading. "I think we're still discovering that," he replied. "But whatever type we are, we're resilient, built to last through drought and heat and storm. With beautiful flowers," I added. "The most beautiful," he agreed, kissing the top of my head. "And Sarah, thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing the bloom even when I could only see the thorns." "Always," I whispered, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart beneath my ear. "That's what love is." As sleep claimed us, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this moment, the call that had shattered our plans, the hospital room where I'd found him broken and afraid, the months of recovery and rebuilding. None of it was what we had expected when we first got engaged. All of it had shaped us, strengthened us, tested the boundaries of our love and found them far more expansive than we had known. Tomorrow, we would begin our married life together. Not the carefree newlyweds we might have been, but a couple tempered by fire, shaped by challenge, and made more beautiful for the breaking and mending. Like the cacti we wore around our necks, we had stored strength for each other through the drought, developed protective mechanisms against life's harshness, and emerged with an unexpected flowering that was all the more precious for the difficulty that preceded it. It wasn't the story we would have chosen, but it was ours, and in its own way, it was perfect. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.